This is TWIS, This Week in Science, episode number 482, recorded on Thursday, September 25th, 2014. Teach the children well. Hey everyone, I am Dr. Kiki, and today on This Week in Science, we are going to fill your heads with black holes, polyandry, and climate change. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. In my body, I am bones and muscles, heart and lungs, vessels and intestines. I am nerves and brain, senses and thought. In my body, I feel my aches and pains, soft caresses. I hear breath and beats, song and words. I see light and color, frequency reflected. I taste sweet and sour, bile and blood. I imagine dreams and dragons, hopes and fears. In my body, I am my shadow, dark and light. I am the things I reach for, the things I touch. In my body, I am me. I am my family. I am the world. I am This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind I can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kirsten and Blair.
Good science to you too, Justin. And welcome everyone out there to another episode of This Week in Science. It is the show where we talk about what happened in science during the past week. And there was a bunch of interesting stuff that happened. Let me tell you, some weird and wacky things also. Things that make me go, what? Yeah, so we've got a great show ahead. On this week's show, I've got some stories about trees as unique flowers. The black holes that maybe don't exist? I don't know about that one. Crazy, crazy. And 2,000 liters of beer on the wall.
2,000 liters of beer on the wall. I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah, and we also have an interview with Mark McCaffrey, who is the director of programs and policy at the National Center for Science Education, and he will be speaking with us about a new book that he has been working on that is coming out climate smart and energy wise. It's for teachers, for parents who homeschool, for any educator who works in the field of climate science education, trying to help people really get down to the nitty-gritty of how to teach climate science to our children. And so we'll be talking with him in the second half of the show. Justin, what you got?
I have the origin of water, the origin of tools, a better pesticide that just got deployed, and how to make better cement.
Nice.
Every year, there's a new, better cement story.
Cement is, it's an evolving science.
I don't know, can it really be improved?
Thousands of years ago,
Yeah.
done. No, cement, it still has new innovations.
It hasn't cemented itself yet.
Oh, and I also have a really interesting space bubble story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. And Blair, what do you have?
Oh, let's see. I have mating in spiders, mating in mice, and mating in narwhals.
So it's the all mating week in Blair's Animal Corner.
It's different elements, though. Different elements of the science, you know. A lot less on the mechanics this week. A lot more on the ins and outs of the social dynamics is more what I was looking at.
Perfect.
Also, Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 5775.
5775. Yes, it's Rosh Hashanah, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Yes. Well, Happy New Year to those of you who celebrate this holiday. And let's move on. Oh, fancy fun news. No, not really. A report coming out from the World Health Organization. It's data collected by the World Health Organization, but projections by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, here in the United States. Between 550,000 and 1.4 million people in West Africa are likely to be infected by Ebola by January 20th, 2015.
Wow.
Yeah. So cases cited so far by the WHO are 5,864. They believe that to be underreported and that there might be 2.5 times as many people currently infected or having been infected. These are based on an epidemiological model that takes into account how many people each Ebola patient eventually infects, as well as other factors, and it's based on data from August, so not more recent data out of September. There is action taking place, but this is not great. This is not great news. Just to let you know what is happening.
I mean, the prediction is 1.5 million. The current is 5 to maybe 10,000, somewhere in that range. But
Yes.
what they're predicting is a doubling and then doubling and then doubling effect. Just magnitudes of increase between now and January.
Yeah. Exponential, pretty much. Yeah.
And not surprising, seeing as where this is taking place. Honestly, I mean, there's a Vice documentary about Ebola in Liberia, I think is what it's called. That was before, that came out before the recent outbreak. And there was they did a couple of different documentaries down in Liberia. You can kind of see this is not a nation in the way that we think a nation is formed. This is not a place that's got a structure or an economy or anything. It's not a system. It's not a place that has a good dissemination of information or a solid educational system behind it. Currently, it's
exactly
decades long, brutal civil war.
Yeah,
it's going to be. Yeah, I can see why.
It's going to be ugly.
Prediction.
Yeah. So what it's going to take is a concerted international effort to reduce the infection rate in West Africa, but we'll see. We will see what happens. With those kinds of numbers, we can probably expect that we will see more cases here in the United States, but it's still not going to be to the extent that, you're not going to know somebody with Ebola, most likely. Mm-hmm. It's really,
and it's also as much as this prediction is telegraphing a rapid expansion of the disease, it's actually hard to catch. I mean, it's not an airborne. It's not. You don't catch it like you'll catch the flu. You're not gonna touch a doorknob that somebody else touched and get Ebola from it. You have to be in close personal contact.
Yeah, body fluids.
Yeah. Body
fluid contact. Yeah. Oh, so on that note, let's talk about something a little bit happier, like trees.
Ooh, I like trees.
Yeah, University of Oregon researchers have done the genetic fingerprinting of bacteria on 57 species of trees growing on a Panamanian island. And what they found, this was published last week in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, and they found that each tree species has a unique bacterial profile. They gathered samples from 57 of more than 450 tree species on Barro Colorado Island, Panama. And they found that some bacteria were very abundant and present on every leaf in the forest, while others were rare and only found on the leaves of a single host species. Each tree species of tree possessed a distinctive community of bacteria on its leaves, says the lead researcher named Stephen W. Kemble. So it's interesting that some are really abundant on many trees and some are very specific. And they found some types were more abundant when they grew on the leaves of fast-growing or more slow-growing tree species. So the profile, the ecological profile of the trees determined the bacteria abundance, and also on leaves with different concentrations of elements like nitrogen or phosphorus, so the things that would be available for the bacteria to utilize. I was going to say, Kemble says, because of the importance of the microbiome for the growth and function of the host, understanding the factors that influence bacteria on the leaves of different trees could have important implications for our ability to model and conserve biological diversity and ecosystem function.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's pretty much similar to how each of our guts is like a fingerprint, and no two are exactly the same, right? And there's lots of things that will relate to that, such as our diet and our metabolism and all sorts of stuff that plays into exactly what makes our gut bacteria biome, I guess you could say. So just similarly, the trees, it's external because they're a tree.
Exactly.
But the bacteria is individual to their own processes also. Makes perfect sense. I think that's so awesome. I never would have thought of it, but it's one of those things that when you say it, you go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, what bacteria are on the trees? What bacteria are working in this ecosystem? And is it this, you could guess that it'd be the same across species just because they're in the same ecosystem, but it's not, like you said, it's not that way for people, so why would it be for trees? Every tree is a unique and delicate flower. It is, just like you and me, unique and delicate flowers. And my final intro story is that a University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill physics professor, Laura Mersini-Houghton, has mathematically proven, so it's not like she's gone out with a telescope looking at black holes, but she's mathematically proven that black holes cannot come into existence, that when stars blow up, the big massive ones that become so massive that they just fall in on themselves, that all the matter just attracts down and it becomes what we think of as a black hole, where everything contracts into infinity and becomes a black hole, that can't happen. And what she says is that mathematically an event horizon would surround let's see, it combines Hawking's radiation theory and quantum theory, and so that a collapse of a star gives off radiation, like Stephen Hawking has suggested, but by giving off the radiation, it sheds its mass so dramatically that it doesn't have the density to become a black hole. Now I want to know what we're looking at when we find radio and when we find signals from the center of galaxies that seem to be indicative of a black hole. It would seem that there are black holes. So if her math suggests that there are none, what are we looking at? Really?
Yeah.
What are
Obviously, I don't know. But I would imagine that you could have something super, super dense that almost became a black hole and still would have the gravitational effect and might still be having the radiation burst as well. Especially if it can't, especially if it can't trap light. Especially if light isn't forced to escape, but is maybe collected, and then if enough light is in the sort of realm of where it would be around the black hole is allowed to escape again. These could be the bursts. These could be like quasars. These ultra bright, because that is the biggest black holes, the quasar, the ones that we expect to be at the center of most galaxies. A lot of these are emitting a tremendous amount of light and radiation. So who knows? I like the idea though. It makes more sense to me than a black hole. Because then you don't have to worry about a black hole. Oh, goodness.
Then we don't have to worry about it at all.
Doesn't matter. Never comes up. Think of it never again. But the clock's moving here and the clock over there isn't moving. No. Don't worry about it. No such thing. That would be a real relief. Just maybe not scientifically, but conceptually. It would be a conceptual relief.
Yeah. From the abstract to her paper, which is available on archive, arxiv.org. It is a physics preprint server where you can actually read the paper if you are so inclined. She writes, we find that Hawking radiation emitted just before the star passes through its Schwarzschild radius slows down the collapse of the star and substantially reduces its mass. Thus, the star bounces before reaching the horizon. The area radius starts increasing after the bounce. Beyond this point, our program breaks down due to shell crossing. We find that the star stops collapsing at a finite radius larger than its horizon, turns around, and its core explodes. This study provides a more realistic investigation of the back reaction of Hawking radiation on the collapsing star than was first presented. So, we are sure to be hearing more about this as the math develops and as people pick the paper apart through the preprint servers.
I thought you were going to say we are sure. We are not sure about black holes.
That is true at the moment as well.
Wait, how does something escape its event horizon if it explodes bigger than its event horizon? Do we still have different running clocks? Oh no. Well, we already do. That's relativity. We always have the different running clocks. What else? You got more, Kiki?
That's your turn now, Justin.
Ooh. Okay, so this is my favorite. They created a new herbicide that they're going to be using on the East Coast salt marshes to deal with Phargmitis australis, which is a reed, which has become a very rapid invasive colonizer of coastal wetlands, all the way from New England down through the southeast. They've been looking at a bunch of different potential chemical things to use, but of course it's marshland and all this, and they're sort of worried. So their new herbicide is goats.
Goats as an herbicide.
I love it.
Yeah, their herbicide is an herbivore.
Yeah, they
found that
eat it
by just taking small groups of goats out to regions of the marshland. They were reducing the invasive reed from its 94% coverage of the region down to 21% on average. So that there's significant reduction of this invasive reed.
What were they eating of the stuff they wanted to keep there? Were they eating other things, or were they only eating the reed?
It's a goat. If there was a shoe out there, the goat's going to eat it.
That's my concern, because you don't want them.
You have 94% coverage with this invasive. What's it?
Yeah.
You put it in the regions where the thing's overrun, right?
Right.
And then maybe you can become more selective. Then maybe you go in and you can hand pluck some. I don't know.
So just have them clear cut it. Just let the goats clear cut this 94% inundated area, then move the goats.
Yeah. Which I mean, this is something that it seems like it's a no-brainer, but of course it takes somebody. Why don't we put some goats out there? See what they do. Because they do that here. They do that in the farmlands of California all the time when they're looking to keep an ag field that hasn't been used for a half a season and it starts to get overgrown, and they're going to go and do some planting again. They take goats out there. You'll see a whole bunch of goats, and they move the goats from one field to the next, and who knows who owns the goats? He never has to feed his goats because there's always somebody willing to feed his goats by having them go hang out.
They use them in San Francisco.
I've seen them, yeah.
I came across a very large herd of goats chewing on things at the base of Sutro Tower.
Wow.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw some in the Bayview a couple weeks ago.
They move them around the city. They're using goats everywhere. Urban goats.
I love it. Goats are great.
They eat.
I encourage everybody go and meet a goat if you haven't met a goat before, because You may have some preconceived notions about goats, but they're awesome.
Okay, this is the suggestion from Blair. Go meet a goat.
Yeah.
All right, what else do you have, Justin?
Some of your preconceived notions about goats might be true.
Oh no.
They do have horns. They do like to slam into people. They do like to butt into things. And yes, they will eat anything, including shoes you're wearing at the time.
It's adorable.
So cute.
All right, moving on.
Okay, so this is also an interesting story. Water, right? Water, it's a good thing. We got some rain today in California for the first time in, I think, 30 years. Water's a good thing. It seems to be, we assume at least, crucial to life on this earth. I think we're accurate in that assessment. It's one of the things that we wonder about when looking at the planets going around these distant stars. Do they have water? Because if so, we believe that is something that's a catalyst or precursor or maybe necessary for life to exist. So if there's water on other planets, we'd like to know about it. But how do we know? How do we even know how water got on our planet, right? Well, this is a recent study has discovered that the water on planet Earth and Mars and some of these comets that are whizzing around, that the water on the Earth is older than our sun. Right? Well, what does that mean? That means that the water that is on planet Earth was around when the sun itself was formed, when our solar system was being formed, when all these things were coalescing and coming together, and that the water itself
came from someplace else.
Yeah. It didn't get formed, at least. It didn't get formed.
It didn't get formed here. It floated over here.
Together, and then, boom, there's water. Let's see. What did they use? They used interstellar water ice has a high ratio of deuterium to hydrogen because of the very low temperatures at which it forms. Until now, it was unknown how much of this deuterium enrichment was removed by chemical processing during the sun's birth, or how much deuterium-rich water ice the newborn solar system was capable of producing on its own. So the team created models that simulated a protoplanetary disk in which all the deuterium from space ice had already been eliminated by chemical processing, and the system has to start from scratch, producing ice with deuterium in it during the million-year period. They did this in order to see if the system can reach the ratio of deuterium to hydrogen that are found in meteorite samples, oceans, the Earth's ocean water, and time capsule comets. They found it could not do so, which told them that at least some of the water in our solar system has an origin in interstellar space that predates the age of our sun.
Wow. Trippy.
And speaking of trippy, they found there's an archaeological site in Armenia. This site is being dated about 335,000 years ago. And they're finding tools, edges, sort of like spear tips, basically. These, that sort of flaked off stone tools, which predates anything found in Africa. So this is a pretty recent discovery. This is being cataloged and brought up, but it looks like hunting weapons, the rest, may have, at least in terms of our oldest evidence now, been developed out of Africa first. These stone tools may have then traveled down into Africa.
Wow, so they would have come. It's from out of Africa.
Yeah, and at 300, and this is in an odd time too. This is, well, I guess it's not the first Exodus, but it's outside of the modern Homo sapien Exodus, right? It's well before, at 325,000 years ago.
But it's possible we just haven't found the tools that are even before that yet.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. But this is for now. But you go with, this is the thing. You got to go with the oldest evidence.
Of course.
And there are.
That's your pin in the timeline and the map and everything else.
There are ideas, however, from other evidence that there have been movements of people from Africa, out of Africa, and then back into Africa. So there were people, because people were moving around all over the place, and maybe they didn't keep track of where they'd been before.
Yeah.
And so they go back, bring
They thought it
tools
was-
with them.
Without mapping, they thought they'd found another new land.
Right. They didn't have GPS at that point in time.
Well,
All
they had it,
right.
but they didn't have relativity yet, so GPS didn't work very well.
Yeah, no, not quite so well. Einstein hadn't come around yet. All right, everybody, I think it is time to move into some animal corner.
She loves our creature, bright and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. Wanna hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. Animal corner.
Yay. So let's get right into polyandry.
Woohoo! Okay.
Oh, what?
So polyandry.
What did I just agree to? No.
Holly, what?
Oh, Kiki. Polyandry is basically promiscuity. It's when a female will have more than one mating partner so that when babies come out, nobody knows who the father is. And this is a really advantageous way to have babies in a society where infanticide is common. So there's lots of mammal species that the males will practice infanticide to cut down on the genes that aren't theirs, or to bring females back into estrus sooner than they would otherwise. There's lots of reasons that a male mammal would kill the babies of another male.
Yeah.
So one way that females can counteract that is by having multiple partners. So then, if many males have had contact with that female, they don't know whose baby it is. They have to play it safe and not kill that baby. It might be theirs. What they've found now is a new form of polyandry, which is mostly a social form of polyandry, socially mediated polyandry, where mice will share a nest. And so the babies will kind of all just be in there, and they won't mate with multiple males, but each female has mated with a different male. And so nobody knows whose baby is whose. The females all just raise all of the infants in there together, and then the males kind of have to play it safe, can't go after any of the babies.
Right. Because the males don't know exactly whose is whose. The females know.
Wait, you're painting the males like, oh, I'd kill one of these brats if I only knew whose it was. No,
Sorry. I have an animal in my animal
might
corner.
just
Hold
be
on.
different.
The dog in Blair's animal corner is not pleased by this polyandry pattern.
Okay, sorry, I'm back. But yes, you're right. That's one thing you could think. Or you could think maybe they're just doing it so that they can all help each other out in raising the babies. There's a bunch of different reasons. But if you look at the study, this is really interesting. They looked at these mice in a lab. So again, this is all in a lab. This was not observed in nature. But in the lab, these researchers found that pups born to females who nested alone and only had one mate, 50% of those babies were killed.
Wow.
Wow.
Meanwhile, those born to females nesting together, where each of the females had different mates, 80% survived. And then there were even some communal litters where the different females had mated with the same male, but they had even a lower survival rate. Only 40% survived. Meaning,
Doesn't that ruin everything?
no, it doesn't, because multiple females with one male.
Right.
So he was the
And then
father
they're
to
just
all of them.
And if another male comes in, he's like,
Yeah, exactly. So that rules out the idea that they're just increasing the chance of survival by either protection or better care. That's not the case, because when they were working together but they all had the same father, they were killed off.
Hmm. I wonder if how scent is involved in this, because we know that mice have a fairly good
Mhm.
sense of smell, and there's got to be something involved with males coming in, scenting a litter, and not smelling themselves in it.
Yes, that could definitely be something about it. It could also be that they have a scent memory for who they've mated with and they smell
Right.
the female.
Yeah.
There
It
could
could
be,
be.
yeah, I would assume that it's mostly scent driven. I don't, we don't have that research. We haven't done that research yet, but one could assume it's mostly scent driven. But that somehow these males recognize either the females that they've copulated with or they recognize the babies that they've begot. So that's, and they can't recognize the exact babies, but they can recognize a nest that they've had some part in. So that's not a genetic thing. They're
Right.
obviously not smelling genetics. They're, or they would know still which babies were theirs and weren't theirs within a nest.
Right, but they'd have to get up close to the babies to be like, "You're mine, you're not mine." Yeah, but they're probably not smelling that. You're right.
Yeah. So at least
Yeah.
in a lab, this is a really interesting tactic. So this is something now we have to look at in the wild with other societies, other mammal societies that practice infanticide. We need to look at this now because this is something that we could look
Communal
at.
rearing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was my first mating. Now mate guarding. And this is one that the one that you sent me, Key, is so cool about jumping spiders.
Which we
So
love.
we love jumping spiders. Terrifying. Nothing more scary than a jumping spider, right? But they found that males, they guard their mates, which we already knew, but they found that they will actually guard them when the females are not yet mature. So they'll guard the subadult females against rival males, and then they wait until they're mature, and then they get to capitalize on that time investment. So they were looking at exactly what about that was an advantage. If the females were selecting the males because they took care of them, or if it was just proximity, or what of that. And so as far as they could tell, it sounds like the females, they didn't really care that the males hung out. Mating success didn't differ between males that successfully defended a subadult female and males that just happened to locate an unmated mature virgin female. So it sounds like it's mostly proximity. But this is where the plot thickens. To look at that further, researchers sealed the male's copulatory organs so that the males could guard normally, but were unable to transfer genetic material. And then they compared the mating rates of sealed versus intact males. And they found that the guarding behavior and not sperm transfer influenced female remating behavior.
What does the remating mean? That they remated with the same male, or that
Yeah.
So that would lead to, if a male were transferring sperm, that would lead to a greater probability of having baby spiders.
So the initial mating, it seems, was not influenced, but the long-term, if you can call it that, spider relationship was influenced by guarding her while she was young and fragile.
Right. Old male spiders guard virgin females until they are old enough.
Yeah.
This is just a bad novel. Okay.
Yeah. And last we have narwhals. Narwhal, yeah. They have that adorable long unicorn horn that is actually a modified tooth. Yep, it's a tooth. And why would you think they have that tooth, Justin? What do you think it's for?
I would guess, and I'm sure I'm wrong, because I think it's a sensor. I think it's censoring stuff in the water with its toothiness. It looks like it would be to break through the ice, but I don't think that's what they use it for. I think they use it as a super sensitive checker of what's in the water.
Okay, so previous hypotheses have been water testing. They have been a sensor, like you were saying, has been a weapon. They have thought maybe it could be for hunting food, although I don't know how that would work. All
Yeah,
of those
do it,
things,
and then
like
they're
a fork.
reach
It's
it.
like a fork.
It's stuck on the.
Yeah. Well, it turns out the latest hypothesis now is that it's sexually selected.
Huh?
It's the female narwhals find it real attractive.
Wow.
And that's because,
Interesting.
yeah, they were looking at narwhal anatomy measurements, and they found a correlation between narwhal tusk length and any guesses?
Success in mating. Or offspring. Genetic
Is it like one of those things like, you know they say size of the shoe
Yeah, exactly.
is an indicator.
It's testes mass, yes.
Okay.
Yes, there was a correlation between testes mass and tusk length. So one could infer that the two are related. But correlation and causation are different, as we will say time and time again. And so this is just kind of the first suggestion towards this. So obviously more research needs to be done. They need
to do genetics. They need to see what the actual mating success is, what is the fecundity measure of these individuals, as not just the testes size, because yeah.
So you can find a lot of things. You could also just say, hey, they got more energy, they had better food, they had better nutrients, everything grew more.
Bigger, faster, stronger males.
Bigger tooth, bigger everything else. It makes sense to me that it would just happen to go that way. So we don't know that it's actually a sexually selected trait, but it's an interesting idea. So it's just another one to look at.
Another one for the record books. In the meantime, we can still imagine narwhals ice breaking, even though that doesn't really happen.
Yeah. I like to picture it as a fork where he's just skewering fish on the narwhal. Yeah.
And on that note, we are going to head to the break. When we come back, we are already joined by Mark McCaffrey from the NCSC. He's going to be talking with us about his new book that teaches teachers, educators, how to talk about climate science and how to teach it, climate smart and energy wise. And we will be back with him in just a few moments. Please stay tuned. All right, everybody, this is your heads up. Our normal live show time is 8 p.m. on Thursday evenings for the month of October. That's this month, starting next week, starting October 1st. We will be broadcasting on Wednesday nights. For the month of October, you can find us still at 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, but Wednesdays. So mark your calendars from here on out. TWIS has merchandise that you might enjoy if you like to support this little show, and also wear our swag. We've got hats and cups and tote bags and stamps and all sorts of things over at our Zazzle store. So if you go to twis.org and look for the Zazzle store in our main header bar on our website, you can find all that cool stuff. Wear some TWIS swag. Help us out. Additionally, TWIS is supported by listeners like you. Your donations pay for everything that we do. Hosting, bandwidth, contractors we need to hire to do stuff, equipment that we need to buy, fun stuff that we try to do. We appreciate any amount that you are able to give. $2, $200, whatever it is, we really appreciate it because it helps us continue to bring you better and better programming. We currently accept donations in a couple of ways. We have PayPal donation buttons on each show page on our website, TWIS.org, or you can head over to patreon.com, Patreon.com, patreon.com/thisweekinscience, just kind of like Kickstarter, but for content creators like us. And you can continue to support us on an ongoing basis and get stuff in return, little gifts from us for helping us out. Whatever your preference, you go to the website, twist.org, listen to the most recent episode, and comment on the show maybe, and make a donation. Would be really appreciated. But if you can't afford a donation, we can always use your help to get more people interested in TWIS. Let's grow this show, right? Let's get more people learning and enjoying science. We can use your social networks for science too, right? Tell people to tune into TWIS and help us out. It would be very much appreciated. We thank you for your support. We really could not continue to do this without you. And we are back with more This Week in Science. And I would love to welcome our guest. Mark, I believe you're still muted, so if you can unmute yourself so we can speak, it would be wonderful. Our guest is from the National Center for Science Education. He is the Programs and Policy Director and the author of the recently released book, Climate Smart and Energy Wise. It's a wonderful book, an incredible resource. I've had the chance to go through it a bit prior to this show, and it's a great resource for educators of all kinds. Hello, Mark.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. There you are.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for joining us again. You've joined us before. It's wonderful to have you back on.
Yeah, I think it was back in May when the National Climate Assessment was released, and we talked a little bit about the report, which had just come out after years of work. Scientists from all over the country, from different federal agencies and from academia, chipped in together to put this incredible report together that helps the nation understand what's happening with climate change already, and then what's projected to happen in the coming years and decades.
And this week has been a massive week. I know there were, 400,000 people who marched in New York City for climate.
Something like that.
Yeah, and there's the UN climate talks have been ongoing. There's been a lot of discussion of whether or not they'll actually talk about anything useful, but yeah, but I think the big question here, I was looking at a link from your blog, from the NCSE blog. It was linked out to a Yale University site where it talked about the six types of attitudes in America. Like basically,
the Six America study. Yeah,
the Six America study. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The lead researcher is a fellow named Tony Lazarowitz, who has been at Yale since about 2006 working on these studies, and he's got a whole team of people, including Ed Maybach at George Mason University. But the work they have done has been to really characterize six main, what they call audience segments in America in terms of basic attitudes about climate change, and they range from people who are very alarmed to people who are concerned or cautiously concerned, and then there's people who are either disengaged, doubtful, or dismissive of climate science. And so over the years they've been tracking these different groups, and the biggest groups are really the cautious and concerned. They make up about 40% of the overall United States population, and then there's about between 15 and 20% who are alarmed. So that makes up the majority of the folks in this country. And then there are some, so for instance, the dismissive range from about 8% to 16%, and those are folks who are often very opinionated and do dismiss climate science as a hoax or as a scheme for scientists to get rich, which those of us who know scientists know very few of them are getting rich.
Yeah, very few.
But then there's some people who are just disengaged because they have other things going on in their lives, or it's just not on their radar. So I think that framework has been very helpful for us to understand what people are thinking, and they've also done a very interesting study, which I mentioned in my book, that had to do with people's knowledge. So the studies that they've been doing mostly focus on people's attitudes and beliefs around climate change. But they've also studied in this goes back a couple of years, 2010 was when they actually did the survey, but they looked at teenagers and adults and their knowledge of climate change. And what they found is that most Americans, no surprise here, actually have a very shallow understanding of climate change, and they would fail a quiz. If they were given a quiz about the basics of climate, how the climate system works, or about energy, and the difference, where do they get their energy from, and so forth, most people would get a failing grade, or a D or an F. The people that did the best on the test, and even then very few of them got an A or a B, were the alarmed. And so what the study seems to show, and we need to do more follow-up research to confirm this, is that people who do understand at least the basics tend to be more concerned, if not downright alarmed about what the science is saying. And I think most scientists that study this are quite alarmed themselves, because they see on the current trajectory that we're on, we have the potential for heating the planet, not just warming the planet. Sometimes global warming sounds like it's nice and cozy and warm on a cold winter night, but we have the potential for heating the planet very, very substantially. Right now, we've added about less than 3 watts per meter squared in terms of the energy imbalance through human activities, and we could, by the end of the century, raise that to almost 9 watts per meter squared, and that's if we just continued burning fossil fuels as if there were no tomorrow. So that's the reason why a lot of scientists who are studying the ice sheets and so forth are really quite alarmed and concerned at a very deep level. This is not casual concern. They're the ones who often are sort of tearing their hair out, feeling like we're not doing a good enough job educating or communicating this. And so that's one reason I wrote the book, Climate Smart and Energy Wise, is to try to help start a discussion about how can we transform our understanding in the nation and build a generation of young people that really understand the causes and effects, but also the risks and possible responses to climate change.
Yeah, I think it's a really valuable perspective and action to take, because we are at a point where education is really going to tip the balance for people understanding and being able to think critically. And because the dismissers, the active dismissers, are, like you said, 7 or 8% to like 16% of the population of the United States, they are the minority, but they are the most vocal, and they make it seem as if the majority isn't listening and has no idea what's going on.
Right,
Where the reality, as you stated, is that the majority is alarmed and knowledgeable, or they don't know what's going on, but they think maybe they should learn some more about it.
Right, which is why those middle segments are so great, because those are the ones that you can actually have an influence on if you have kind of a unified front of how to talk about this stuff, which is why books like this are so important. If we can all kind of get behind the same information of how best to talk about this stuff, that's when we're going to see a change in the discourse, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one of the things I try to point out in the book is that this conversation has started. It's largely kind of ad hoc, where some teachers get all fired up and they go to professional development workshops or something like that, and they maybe in some cases they have a chance to actually talk to climate scientists and get a better sense of how scientists know what they know. And they're also finding ways of making this not gloom and doom, because it's easy to fall into the, oh my God, it's so terrible, I don't know what we can do about it kind of frame. But in fact, there's a number of schools, like for instance here in California, the Mount Diablo School District out near Walnut Creek, they get over 90% of their energy from solar panels all over the school district. And in fact, I just read the other day that school districts are one of the largest growing segments of solar energy in the country, because people are recognizing, teachers, parents, administrators are realizing that this is a good way to reduce costs of energy by putting solar panels all over the schools. And it's also a huge teachable moment, because once you have that type of system on your building, and you can, these days they have these cool dashboards where you can see how much, in real time, how much energy is coming in, how much is being consumed, and so forth. Those are incredible tools for, you know, teaching the science, bringing in the mathematics, and then of course in a social studies class and a civics class, there's a whole other dimension you can add to this. But I think the challenge is for us to figure out ways to teach these topics, climate, energy, sustainability, throughout the curriculum, not just for a couple of days in an earth science class, which is kind of the way we've been doing it, you know, for way too long, or skipping it altogether in some cases. But we need to figure out ways to teach it throughout the curriculum.
Right, and that's why, like you talked about in the book, the NGSS is so key to this, I think, because the Next Generation Science Standards is all about Common Core. And they have so many things that they expect children to be able to do that are English or language arts or math related that directly link in to a lot of climate change education that could be done. And energy also, for sure. So it's something that I think that's one of the main things that in my day job I'm trying to do right now as well, is try to figure out how to make this stuff accessible to teachers that are just trying to get their kids to learn how to read. They don't have these science hours in their day-to-day in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, because they're trying to get these kids to do very fundamental things. They want them to read, they want them to write, they want them to do multiplication and long division. And if we can give them the tools to do that through science, then that's half of our battle is taken care of already.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about. You know, I was looking at how many of the next generation standards relate to energy and climate and these related topics, you know, in kind of environmental science and so forth. And at the elementary level, which is actually where most of the standards are, I think 37 out of the 60 standards are at the elementary level. And 30 of those 37 standards relate to climate, energy, and the environment. So that's basically almost all of them. And unfortunately, as you're pointing out, there's an emphasis on teaching them reading and the math, which is important, but the science is often pushed off on the side, and the teachers don't have the background themselves. They don't necessarily feel comfortable with it. And there's a lot of pushback right now on the Common Core mathematics and language arts standards, which are a little different from the Next Generation Science Standards. They were developed a few years earlier, and the pushback comes from the testing issues. There's such an emphasis on testing for Common Core math and reading that it's become a huge controversy within the education community. And some states are actually thinking about pulling out of the Common Core math and reading standards. Meanwhile, Next Generation Science Standards, we've got 12 states that have adopted those, but a lot of other states are kind of on hold to see what happens with the math and reading standards. So it's a very complex situation, but to your point, science is so integrating. You can bring together the reading and the math, and these topics of climate and energy and the environment are so interdisciplinary that I think we're seeing some great success where schools are actually using those as themes to kind of bring it all together.
Definitely.
So when you're in your book, you've got some chapters on teaching climate literacy and teaching energy literacy. So, for example, the teaching climate literacy, you focus on the 7 essential principles. The sun is the primary source of energy for the Earth's climate system. Climate is regulated by complex interactions among components of the Earth system. Life on Earth depends on, is shaped by, and affects climate. Climate varies over space and time through both natural and human processes. Our understanding of the climate system is improved through observation, theoretical studies, and modeling. Human activities are impacting the climate system, and climate change will have consequences for the Earth system and human lives. Through these principles, do you support or ideas for the teachers so that, or educators, they might be able to explain these things, make them hands-on, give them hands-on in-classroom activities or anything that can bring it home for the students?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that gives me a lot of hope and I'm very excited about is that there actually are great resources out there. I point to something called CLEAN, which stands for the Climate Literacy Energy Awareness Network, which I helped start a number of years ago. But it was funded by the National Science Foundation as a digital library, and we had a whole team of experts, scientists and educators. The scientists were looking at the online resources like learning activities and videos and visualizations to make sure that they were scientifically accurate, and then the teachers were helping us to make sure that they were grade appropriate and had good pedagogical potential. So what I do in the book is point to some of the very best resources that relate to, for instance, the complex interactions, which is one of those essential principles. There's also a guiding principle for climate literacy, which is that humans can make informed decisions in order to minimize the impacts of climate change. And so that, in a way, is kind of a very positive approach. And in a way, it's a little unusual for science organizations to come right out and say, yes, there's things we can do as human beings to make a difference here, because traditionally, often scientists like to be a little bit objective and detached. But this is a very serious situation that obviously we do have a responsibility to make informed decisions about.
And whenever you talk to especially kids about anything that can get to a point of having them feel doom and gloom, if you're going to show children a problem, you have to give them a solution, right?
Or at least give them the tools to allow them to come up with a solution.
No, I like the solution. I like give them the solution to focus their minds around, because
help
in
them
all of this,
lead themselves to a solution even, but there has to be discussion about the solution there, or
which I haven't been hearing enough
productive conversation.
I honestly haven't been hearing enough of. I haven't been hearing enough of the solution, and I think the solution's there. I mean, I'm biased because I think the solution's already there, right? But I think nuclear power. I mean, this is a huge component, and it's been, I think, something that's been very difficult for the one group that's vocalizing concerns about global warming, which is traditional environmentalists, who only seem to proffer up the solution of wind and solar. And solar isn't really going to be that light of a carbon footprint in creating it and putting it out there.
Well, you know what I heard this week?
It's not there readily accessible, and I feel like the nuclear option is there, has been there, and needs to get pushed forward. If anything, we should teach kids about nuclear safety in school.
We have the technology, but to get nuclear facilities online in a timely fashion is the problem. They take so long to build and to get them online to a working ability that the timing doesn't work.
So
for example,
let's start now.
Let's start
this
now.
week
Yes.
I heard
You're talking, well, I
that
mean,
Let
there.
Blair say. Let Blair
stuff
talk.
done to reduce emissions in the meantime. That
Let
still
Blair
needs to
talk.
go forward. But you're not going to do it with solar. I mean, that's just not viable. It's not large enough, and it has a toxic enough footprint that you're replacing one thing with another. Currently, we're getting there. We're getting really close to
Blair, what were
a
you going to
panoplia
say?
of energy coming from solar. But that's even further off than the nuclear, which is there now.
So we have over 1,400 dams in the northern half of California. 1,400. They are not all producing hydroelectric power. There you go.
So-
There's one, right?
But I'd like to this little interaction, I think, shows the challenges of teaching these topics, particularly in a science class, because you don't want to turn the science class into a debating society necessarily.
Yeah.
Because there's enough challenges of just trying to get the basic science out there. So I mean, I try, rather than talking about the solution, I think it's helpful to be talking about the array of responses. And certainly in the social studies class and the civics class, maybe it's more appropriate to have those kind of discussions, debates about what those responses might be, the pros and cons, bringing in the science, of course. But the challenge in a science classroom is making sure that good science is taught and that we don't get immediately wrapped around the axle of the politics, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is something that I wanted to ask too, is I know that when you're talking about solutions, specifically with kids, there's lots of community level stuff that you can talk about, like installing solar panels or changing emission standards or making a bike to school day or, you know, stuff like that. There's lots of stuff that you can give them.
Yeah.
But
Meatless Mondays.
But there's all that stuff is kind of harder, especially for younger kids. And so I want to know what your opinion on simple individual actions is, because I know a lot of the current research is trying to move away from the do one thing perspective, which in an adult world I understand, but for a 5-year-old, I still personally find that there's power in having the kid do something, even if it's small, to make an impact. So I kind of wanted to know what your opinion on that was.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we think carefully about the elementary level, because young people are very innocent and vulnerable to overwhelm, you know, and that I think the next generation science standards do a good job of not getting too complicated. You know, actually, climate change doesn't enter the picture until middle school. So in the early grades, yes, they do introduce the idea that human activities can have an impact on the environment, on ecosystems, and there's things we can do to minimize that. So even at the 1st and 2nd grade level, students are thinking about what can we do to minimize water pollution, for instance. And you know, by the time they get to 4th and 5th grade, they're thinking about where does our energy come from, and what are some of the impacts on the environment from the use of a particular energy or whatever. But they're doing it at a very foundational level. And one of the key things about next generation science standards is that they include these engineering design principles, which are kind of very solutions or response oriented. In other words, what are the type of tools that we can use? What are the strategies that we can use to solve a problem? And how can we take the problem and break it down into little chunks that are manageable? So those are exactly the type of skills that young people will then be able to take into middle and high school when they're actually presented with these larger problems, you know, understanding greenhouse gases, understanding you know, some of the other big global change related challenges that we face, and they'll be able to work in teams and, you know, collaborate together to come up with appropriate solutions and responses. So
Yeah, I love the idea of getting kids trained from an early age and learning how to break things down, make it manageable, because I know plenty of adults who can't do that.
Yeah.
It's not an easy skill to take a big picture project and go, okay, how do we go back? How do we make this step by step? It's not an easy skill, and so if we can teach kids how to do that, it's gonna.
I struggle with that every day sometimes.
Yeah. I think also your focus on optimism here is really good, and optimism in action. And I loved one of the opening quotes in your introduction from Paul Hawken. When asked if I am a pessimist or optimistic about the future, my answer is always the same. If you look at the science about what is happening on Earth and aren't pessimistic, you don't understand the data. But if you meet the people who are working to restore this Earth and the lives of the poor and you aren't optimistic, you haven't got a pulse.
Right.
And it's I love that because sometimes you do look at the science, the stories that come out day after day that just break your heart. Yeah. And you get overwhelmed with the onslaught of the immense challenge we have facing us. And, it's like, oh, what am I doing? But then it's the people doing stuff in communities, at local levels, cities, communities, not even at the federal government level.
Yeah, and I think the same is true for education. I mean, the education system in this country and around the world faces enormous challenges, and there's all sorts of dysfunction and inequities and funding problems and all the rest of it. But when you meet some of the teachers, when you see the light in the eyes of the students and are not optimistic, then you might as well cash in your chips or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was an article in the New York Times today that was referencing a research article that I don't remember where it came from, that was talking about what temperatures are going to be like, predicting temperatures in the next 100 years, and basically saying 2048 is the year that, on average, extreme weather events and extreme weather it's just going to kind of become the norm, where what we think of as extreme will be our everyday. San Francisco, I think, is going to hit its weird weather as average in 2049. Said that Oregon and Washington are the place to go if you're still looking at wanting to stay on the West Coast. Yeah, but it was really interesting talking, just kind of pinpointing different regions and what regions are going to do okay, possibly, and what regions are going to end up dry, hot. Alaska is going to do great. So.
I saw that article and I thought Alaska is still going to be pitch dark in the middle of the winter.
It's true.
Maybe it'll be warmer, but yeah.
It's still going to be 6 months of dark.
Yeah.
No matter where we are, if you're near the coast, which half the country lives within 100 miles of the coast, we're going to be seeing sea level impacts. The Central Valley of California, just out our back door, is going to face some substantial flooding probably as the levees give way, because parts of Sacramento, the state capital, are actually below sea level. So anyhow, the challenges are gargantuan, and we need to finally be preparing rather than, in a way, collectively denying what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. There's two sides to it. There's the prevention, and then there's the kind of preparation. It's like there's the two different sides, right? Because no matter what, we're not going to get back to where we were. We can still make it better than it could be. But so, yeah, I know a lot of people are looking into flooding other areas in the San Francisco Bay watershed so that we don't end up flooding Sacramento or the Central Valley, or trying to find other areas that we can flood to reduce pressure, or increase wetland areas to reduce pressure from sea level rise. There's lots we can do, for sure.
Yeah, and if we get the next generation up and running and up to speed on the science so that they can pass the tests that you talked about, with flying colors.
Then my prediction is they're going to turn around and look at us and say, why haven't you been building nuclear power plants? What have you been doing?
Justin is nuclear power.
That's right. So the book is out, is it not, Mark?
I have actually not seen a hard copy. Haven't been able to hold it in my hands, but they tell me it's shipped from the warehouse now, so any day now.
It is published by Corwin, and the website is still noting the pre-publication price. But climate smart and energy wise, and if there are educators out there who, or if you know educators out there to whom this would make a wonderful gift, it seems like it would be a very helpful tool in the arsenal of teaching about climate science. So
I hope so.
yeah, thank you so much for writing the book, and thank you for joining us today to talk about it. Really appreciate it. I hope it spreads near and far, all across the country.
All right.
Yes. Thank you, Mark. And for anyone who wants to follow you online, where can they find you?
Well, my publisher had me set up my own website. I'm not really big on self-promotion, but markmccaffrey.com is sort of a placeholder website that points to where you can buy the book, and also visit our website, ncsc.com, and we also have the Science League of America blog, ncsc.com/blog.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to have a few more stories here before we head out. So, Mark, if you want to go, you can go, or you can sit and listen. Thank you for joining us once again.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
And let's see, more stories. You know that fresh cut grass smell? The lawnmower, that odor of freshly cut grass? You know that?
I do. Yeah, I've cut a few lawns.
It might actually serve a purpose.
Oh.
Yes. Researchers from Texas A&M AgriLife Research Plant have looked at this odor and the odor molecules, characterizing them and testing their functions during plant insect attacks. The researchers pretty much found that there are two roles for this molecule, the cut grass odor molecule, and the researcher says first it activates the jasminate hormone, which involves jasminate, yes, it involves activation of defenses against insects on the plant, and then the molecule, since it's a volatile, which means it escapes up into the air, attracts parasitic wasps. They come to the plant that's being chewed up by insect herbivores and lay eggs in the caterpillar's body. So the volatiles, if you get rid of them, the wasps are not attracted to the plant, and then even when an insect chews on the leaf. So it's this volatile odorant molecule, jasmonic acid, actually attracts parasitic insects, parasitoids, to come and protect the insects.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, so the smell, this compound, it produces other stuff in the plant that will ward away predators of the plant. So basically when you cut the grass, it doesn't know it's a lawnmower. It's just being eaten by something. Right?
Nice.
And so
Yeah.
it just thinks it's being chewed on by a caterpillar. Just really a lot of caterpillars all at once.
That's nice.
Yeah. Cut grass smell.
I have a piggyback to cut grass.
Yeah.
So unmown grass is a win-win for wildlife and humans. In a new UK study, it increased by threefold the density of flowers, and flower visiting insects like bees, butterflies, and moths were up to 5 times higher in the lesser mown areas of a park. And not to mention, it increased visitorship as well by humans. So
People like unmown.
And to piggyback on that piggyback, a lot of people who are trying to conserve water and not mow their lawns as much are turning to cement, or they're cementing over their former
lawns, right?
that is the least popular choice for wildlife, I would assume.
It may be, however, a new analysis of concrete or cement, really doing a good job. They're looking at one of the main ingredients and figuring out how to reduce it. Cement is mostly made up of, it's a silica and what's the other? It's a calcium that are put together that do the bonding, that turn a liquid into a basically stone in a matter of hours. This is interesting. They're working on this molecularly to see not just if they can make a stronger form of cement, but one that emits less greenhouse gases.
Oh, neat. Yeah, because the process of making cement is actually quite greenhouse gas heavy.
Yeah. There's, emissions related to concrete production are estimated to represent 5 to 10% of industrial greenhouse gas emissions. Now, we know that the industrial sector is a massive producer. And so this is 5 to 10% of that. And this new formula, this new way of going about it, which is reducing some of the calcium required, reduces that by about 60%. So you'd be talking about, 3 to 4% at the end of it, 2 to 4% by the end of if the cement was converted over to this new process.
Which would be better. That would be a substantial change.
That would be more significant than everybody going to a hybrid automobile tomorrow, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Could be, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah, 2,000 liters of beer on the wall. 2,000 liters of beer.
Can't wait to find out how this ends.
Take one down, pass it around. 1,999 bottles of beer on the wall. Liters of beer. Oh, this is a drunken experience. You know what it ends in? Just too much beer drinking. Xanthohumol, a compound that Oregon State University researchers have found to improve cognition in young mice. It doesn't do anything for older mice. Not a bit of change. Xanthohumol, it's a flavonoid. It's found in hops and beer. Xanthohumol, it helps young mice.
Wait, beer makes mice smarter?
Yep, helps their cognition.
Young mice.
Young mice. And I'm going to caveat this with the amount of xanthohumol that the researchers used in this study. You would have to drink 2,000 liters of beer to approximate.
In how much time?
2,000 liters of beer on the wall. But you know what? I think you're already considered an older mouse.
By whose standard? By whose standard?
I think you would already be out of the young mouse category.
And this is only male mice, too?
Yes. So males. So published in Behavioral Brain Researchers, these researchers looked at flavonoids, xanthohumol. They were looking at it particularly because it's interesting for potentially being able to treat metabolic syndrome that's associated with obesity, high blood pressure, and other concerns, also including age-related deficits in memory. The compound successfully has lowered body weight and blood sugar in obese rats, and so they used super high doses of it to see what happened in mice. And yes, the young mice were able to run mazes faster, solve problems more quickly and effectively. didn't do anything for older mice. So
But define older mice. What is this in humans? Human age. How long do mice live? Hang on a second. How we determine? Let me see.
Like 1 to 2 years. Not in a lab.
Yeah, 1 to 2 years, not in a lab. A little bit longer if they're in a lab and taken care of. Humans, adults start to experience deficits in memory around the age of 50. And some cognitive effects are seen around 40.
That's the cognitive effect, so it doesn't define them. Those cognitive effects, you become even more smarter than you were before.
Right. But so they were using these flavonoids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flavonoid?
That you get from the hops and beer.
Yes.
But without the other effects that you would get from beer.
From beer, exactly. Exactly.
So if the mouse was also drunk at the same time, I am not convinced they would do faster in the maze.
Or if they were gaining weight, that would go along with the calories consumed from that quantity of beer. Yeah, they wouldn't be doing it faster. So,
that's a rumor. WizMike in the chat room says, "What about cannabinoids?" Well, actually, obvious it would be cannabinoids and hops are the same family and share much of the same traits. Hops is basically a form, is a cannabinoid.
A flavonoid?
Flavonoid. The flavonoid is cannabinoid.
Cannabinoid is a flavonoid.
Hops and cannabis are
related species.
Pretty much the same thing. That's why you can actually flavor beer with marriage hemp, and you can get a nice hoppy aroma from it.
Mm-hmm. Xanthohumol is known to speed the metabolism. In doing so, it reduces fatty acids in the liver, and with young mice, improves cognitive ability or higher level thinking. What the researcher says is that, unfortunately, it did not reduce palmitoylation in older mice or improve their learning or cognitive performance, at least in the amounts of the compound that we gave them. And so it's something that they're trying to figure out is what is happening in older mice that changes the effect. Is it a reduction in certain glutamate receptors, NMDA receptors in aging?
I have a completely unrelated study here.
Okay.
This is the Jackson Laboratory. Jackson Laboratories is defining what they mean when they're talking about ages in mice, life phase equivalency. Mm-hmm. A 2-year-old mouse is the equivalent to a 69-year-old human.
Okay.
Under their definition. So that would be older in mouse. Now it does also say
so maybe you still would fit. Are you just trying to find a way to fit into the young mouse category?
They put
still?
old mouse at that's the older.
It's all right, Justin. You're a young mouse at heart.
Old mouse ranges from 18 to 24 months, which they say ranges between 56 and 69. So there's a good.
Okay.
One.
All right. So you could still be in a young mouse category. That's good.
Well, no, hang on.
Okay.
According to this, I am firmly in the middle of the middle-aged mouse.
They didn't look at middle-aged mice.
I'm just under a 12-month-old mouse in age.
I don't know if they looked at those. Just young and old. So, yeah.
So if those in this study are considered young mice, I'm looking pretty good.
Maven, it inserted at Mars.
What? Wait, huh?
Maven inserted. Is that like that Top Gun thing where he's like, we were inverted? Anyway, no, orbit insertion. Orbit insertion. Mars atmosphere and volatile evolution mission. This is a cool craft made by NASA, and it has arrived at Mars as of 10:24 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on September 21st. The Mars area received its newest inhabitant, It's officially in orbit around the red planet. It's preparing its systems to start taking science measurements to study Mars's upper atmosphere, and is the first satellite dedicated to studying the upper atmosphere of Mars. And it's exciting. It got there. It's been traveling for a long time. Let's see. It launched from Cape Canaveral atop a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket, crossed 442 million miles over 10 months, and completed 33-minute burn to slow the spacecraft down and transition from heliocentric to a Mars-centric orbit. We're excited about this happening. Researchers are thrilled, quoting Bruce Jakosky, Maven principal investigator with the Laboratory for Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado Boulder. It's taken 11 years from the original concept for Maven to now having a spacecraft in orbit at Mars. So that is a thrilling development. 11 years in the making, people. We can have long-term thinking and planning. We can do that. Yeah. We people, we can do it. We can also quantum teleport photons.
Yes, please.
People. Yes, we can. So, French researchers previously teleported a photon something like 6 kilometers, but now the same team. Wow, that was 10 years ago? I am feeling very, very, very old because it doesn't seem like that 6-kilometer record was 10 years ago.
No, you're still a middle-aged mouse.
I'm still a middle-aged mouse. Yes, anyway, teleportation of the quantum state of a photon, its polarization, to a crystal-encased photon 15.5 miles away, more than 25 kilometers away from the original entangled particle. This is a record in terms of distance, and the implications of this are that if we can improve the process and really have flawless or not really error-prone teleportation, quantum teleportation of these entangled particles, it could mean that we could have pretty much instantaneous communication between Earth and anywhere we have a receiver. So Earth and Mars. Could you imagine quantum teleportation for your cell phone calls? You could call anybody on the planet instantaneously. And we can already do that pretty much, but
yeah. Maybe.
There's not too much of it.
This is what's really spooky, too. I mean, this is that spooky action at a distance deal, right?
Yep,
if I've got this right, they've got 2 entangled particles. One they send into a crystal, one they send down a fiber optic. Goes way down the fiber optic. Goes many. How far did it go? 25 kilometers. Which, if you're not familiar with kilometers, that's 25,000 meters of optical fiber that it whent down. When it goes down that fiber, then it gets pulsed. It gets pulsed with a photon. A photon goes and hits that entangled particle, goes whap, and those particles go
right
back in the crystal.
Destroyed.
Back in the crystal, where the other entangled twin has just been hanging out, appears the photon. What just happened? So, yeah, it does seem as though this is an instantaneous communication thing. Most likely it's a wave function collapse that works backwards in time to make it so this was already happening when this began, because light doesn't care about our timey-wimey moment-by-moment linear progression of things. You can collapse backwards. So
exactly how it happens is...
I think you're right, though. I think it's still possible to create these sort of loops of uninteracting with the rest of the world bits that we can then play with. The only thing is, it almost seems like you'd have to create a different channel, or almost a different fiber optic for each and every single bit of information that you were putting through for it to be able to collapse away backwards in time and then to unentangle itself, or to have that entangled action at a distance. That's the really tricky part, which somebody someday will figure out, but it's not like you could throw multiple entangled particles down the same line and have them continue to interact at a distance. I think once there's been an interaction, it's collapsed everything along that route backwards, and then it doesn't. But I don't know.
We still have to figure this. We have to figure it out. We don't know. I don't know. Right now, it's one photon.
So my teleporter's coming, is what you're telling me.
Possibly.
Yeah. And it will teleport a photon.
A photon.
Whenever you want one, but just one.
So soon, I'll be able to teleport somewhere, right? That's the same.
No.
No.
Not even close.
No.
Not even
This would be a fantastic setup, though. I wish we thought of this ahead of time. Because literally, I can tell where Kiki is. She's got her background. I can tell where Blair is. She's got her background. Mine's a backdrop, right?
Right.
I could actually be right next to one of you right now doing the show, right?
You could.
Right next to you, and like you'd hit the button, I'd go like, "Wah!" And then I'd be there in San Francisco because it's just a backdrop. You can't tell where I am.
So you shouldn't have ruined
should
it.
Really talk ahead of time.
That next week,
shows.
and then
Had done it next week.
bummer.
Oh, did
Spoiled
I
it.
just ruin it? Oh,
You did.
not even gonna.
Hey,
Everybody's gonna know.
I have a fun story that's quick. Books. They're good for you.
What's a book?
What's a book? So it turns out that 6 minutes of reading is enough to reduce stress by 68%. Many studies have shown that reading keeps your brain functioning effectively as you age. One study told us elderly individuals who read regularly are 2.5 times less likely to get Alzheimer's. It also improves your ability to sleep, and it keeps your memory sharp. Now, that is all only if you use a real book.
Did they do this looking at reader devices?
Yes,
And it didn't have those effects?
correct.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. So there's a few things related to that, and I could get way more into it. I could talk about it for 20 minutes. Here's the short and dirty version of it, is that when you read a book, you're able to flip back pages and look at something to refer back, and then flip forward again. It's much easier than you would in an e-reader.
Oh, so it's like magic.
It's also you're changing the mode of your brain. So we look at screens all day. If you sit down with a book before you go to bed, your brain switches. But if you're looking at a screen, you're in the same modality you've been in all day. So it resorts your brain the second you move to real paper.
And additionally, it's light. The light of the situation. With a screen, most e-readers have light that's hitting your eyes from the reader. If you're reading a book, you probably just have an incandescent light overhead, something, LED light, whatever, overhead, pointed at the book.
Yeah.
So
you
just
just
a
have
white piece of paper
and this is what
reflecting light right back in your eyes. Look, no,
This is
here's
what was so
the
cool.
The light is
Hold
different, and it affects your...
no,
Hold on.
this isn't it. And first of all, it's not just any book. It's like, okay, I'm going to read the manual to my car, and therefore I'm going to be... No. What it is a book
that
requires you to use your imagination. And if it's an introspective writer who gets you to get within somebody's thoughts, you're contemplating within the mind of somebody else at the moment, and then it's a feedback loop of introspection and imagination all taking place at once.
They're saying it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. They're saying that your brain processes a screen different than it processes a piece of paper. In fact, when you look at the way people's eyes move, they make an F pattern over a screen. So you read the first couple lines, then you scan down the page on the left side, reading occasional lines that catch your fancy. Pages, you read for real. Whoa.
That's deep.
I love it. I've always been one of those people that have said, oh, I'd rather just read a real book, and everyone thinks I'm just trying to be some hipster, but it's better for my brain.
You're young enough. You are a hipster, but it's good. Paper books, good for your brain, bad for trees.
Not if you buy used books. Buy used books.
That's right, used books. All right. Okay,
so
everybody.
a typical iPhone But if you add up all the production and then the servers and the things and the satellites, if you add it all up, each iPhone or smartphone, doesn't have to be the iPhone, any smartphone, is like having another refrigerator running in terms of the greenhouse gases it produces.
Wow.
Crazy.
Then there's billions of them all over the
I know.
planet.
And my new refrigerator is on order. I can't wait to get it.
I need a new refrigerator. All right, everybody. I think it's time. This refrigerator is running. Refrigerator being this show. Running.
All right.
Anyway. I'd like to give shout-outs to our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We do appreciate it. Kevin, Patrick Cohn, Kevin Donald, Wesley Ballard, Paul D. Disney, Sam Winsier, John Ratnaswamy, Rudy Garcia, Aubrey Burgess, Stephen B., Jason Dozier, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, Andreas Akestad, Jason Roberts, Shane and Tara Ginsberg, Brian Condren, Byron Lee, E.O., Bob Calder, Jared Lysette, Ulysses Adkins, Jake Jones, Cassie Lester, Chris Cross, Sarah Chavez, Stephen Sorowiak, Leila Mirsadegi, Paul Stanton, Marshall Clark, Charlene Davidson Henry, Violated Gorilla, Don Kamarechka, Randy Mazuka, Ed Dyer, Tony Steele, Lord Trentonian Moody, Larry Garcia, Kevin Parachan, Craig Landon, Russell Jensen, Mountain Sloth, Jim Drapeau, Darren Lute, Tara Payne, Alex Wilson, Daryl Lambert, John H. Maloney, Jason Olds, Gordon Grant, James Paul West, Lauren Lang, Ed Bennett, Thomas Mikinen, Alec Doty, Illuminama, Nick Gradwell, Dan Rambo, Dougal Campbell, TMRO, Miko Pakala, Craig Porter, Adam Mishkan, Jason Martin, Marjorie, Scott Lajewski, Tyler Harrison, Ben Rothe, Columba Ahmed, and Gary Swinsberg. Thank you so much for your support. And on next week's show, we're going to be broadcasting live online at 8 p.m. on Wednesday.
Wednesday? What day?
On Wednesday.
Wednesday.
What day?
Wednesday, October 1st will be our live show at 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on twis.org/live. You can watch it. Join our chat room. Be part of the fun. But remember, Wednesday. Don't worry if you can't make it, however, we wish you could, but if you can't, you can find past episodes at youtube.com/user/thisweekinscience or twis.org. And don't forget to tell a friend about TWIS. And if you'd like, check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/thisweekinscience.
Thank you for enjoying the show. TWIS is also available as a podcast. Just Google This Week in Science in your iTunes directory. Or if you have a mobile device, you can look for TWIS for Droid in the Android marketplace or simply TWIS in the Apple marketplace.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes will be available on our website. What's our website? It's www.twis.org. That's TWIS.org. There you can also make comments, start conversations with the hosts and other listeners.
Yes, or you can just contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIScience, at Dr. Kiki, at JacksonFly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for some more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from tonight's show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. This Week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just better understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
Bloop, beep, bloop, bloop, bleep, blop, bloop, 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 bloop. And that is the end of This Week in Science. There was so much science that came out today even. This week was there was a lot of stuff that was interesting. Interesting stuff for the science world. Wednesday. Yeah, I also have to make new run sheets. I haven't done that yet. Oh, and I have to put out new event invites also. Oh my god, I've got so much work to do. This is ridiculous. Where's Blair's backdrop? She's in a different place.
Yes.
That's what happened.
I am with my parents for the High Holy Days.
It's nice to spend those with your family.
Yeah.
It's all about family anyway, right?
Yep. It's the new year. What are you going to do differently this year?
It's really funny because I hadn't really thought of it being the new year yet, so it's kind of putting me on the spot.
Shana Tova.
Yeah. What am I doing differently this year? I am going to continue doing some things the same that I've been doing differently from past
that's
years.
good to identify.
So I'm doing a lot more of putting myself in uncomfortable situations, not the kinds that you're like, that's creepy, but an uncomfortable situation like putting myself outside my comfort zone to do work, to stretch my capabilities, to learn more, to try and actually, I might stumble, I might fall, but not be afraid of that. So to learn to be uncomfortable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, you're trying to be me?
So, here, this is pretty cool. Here's some.
Is that what your life is like,
thought-provoking-
Justin?
Yeah, constantly.
Here's some questions. No, this isn't what I wanted.
Okay, look, so I visited
Thank you,
your fair
Identity
city
Corps.
the other
Thank you,
day. I have a question for you. Why is the Pier District
Mike.
of San Francisco,
The Pier District?
what do you call it? The place with the piers.
Fisherman's Wharf, Pier 39.
Why
Yeah.
does it smell like sewer?
I don't know.
It reeked of sewer. So we went to the
When
new
did you go? You were
aquarium.
there in the
Took the
morning, I
kids
guess?
yesterday. The whole walk there was horrid. It just also, I was even building up. I was like, we're going to get to San Francisco. We're going to get that marine air. It's going to be fresh air. I was like building this up. Like, we get there. Almost as soon as we got out of the car, all the way walking down the pier, the city reeked of sewer.
It's the homeless people.
No. Even your cadre of homeless people could not make this. It was like
It's probably some kind of pipe
Septic
break or
tank
something that happened.
Anyway,
Things
New
happen.
Exploratorium in San Francisco. I don't recommend driving in the city of San Francisco because they haven't figured out how to. You've got like 5-way intersections. Everything is under construction still, constantly. Worst place I've ever driven in my life. But the new Exploratorium is worth the sewer and the San Francisco drivers navigating to it. It is awesome.
It's pretty
The old one
amazing.
was super cool. The new one, the new space that they've got is way nicer. It feels like it's bigger. I can't actually tell if it's more square footage.
It definitely seems longer.
It is.
It
It
is longer. Yeah, it's
You did a
huge.
one run up top, and then you came back down, and they did the low run and the thing. And the cafeteria was kind of chintzy, but now there's a really nice restaurant in there, and they've really upgraded, and it's on the bay, so there's a beautiful view. They did a good job.
They hosted our very first short.
Oh yeah. Oh, who do we know at the Academy of Sciences? I need to get tickets.
Can't you just say your press?
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, yeah. Okay, I can try that.
Try that. If that doesn't work, I can get you in.
Okay. So I'm gonna try that, and then you can get me in.
Try your way.
I can't even get myself in, but then again, I don't really try. So
I always do get me in, but then I can't get like my family of 5.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That
You
would
never
be the
get your
problem.
Family of
They
5
don't
in
look
there.
like a film crew.
No.
no, they don't.
Oh, that's something I was going to do this week, and I didn't do it. I'll do it this coming week. I was going to look at business card options for us.
Oh yeah, PS print is good.
So is Vistaprint, but you got to make sure
Vistaprint,
you don't
PS
charge
print.
you every month forever afterwards, regardless of how many times you say no.
Yeah.
I've gotten stuff from PS print. And they're good
I
too.
think if it's something that we would all use, which I think potentially we would all use them.
Mhm.
Get a little bit.
Oh, that reminds me.
Yeah.
I need to get my brain scanned.
Uh-oh.
What?
Yeah, I've through work I've run into a couple of people at the neurology department here at the university. I might need a letter from you, Kiki, saying that that we want to do a short on whatever the hell research they're doing that allows me to go in and get my brain scanned.
Why do you want your brain
Want your
scanned?
brain scanned?
So I can have a picture of my brain.
Oh boy.
Why don't you volunteer for a study?
I have, but I haven't really yet formally.
Yeah,
just
volunteer for a study. I did that once. I got pictures of my brain.
Yeah, well, that's what I need. I need to figure out what these. Well, I guess I just need to do that on my own. But yeah, I'm trying to get them. But I thought it'd be a good short too, like go in and whatever the
Mm-hmm.
study is, we could talk about it, and at the same time, I'd go in and get my brain scanned.
Yeah, I like it.
Awesome.
Is anyone let's see if doing a MRI study that at Jackson Fly can volunteer for?
Even with my middle-aged brain.
In
Which I was
Mouse
told
brain?
I've got because I'm middle-aged.
Sacramento /
Most of the volunteers
Bay
they get don't have
area.
a prefrontal cortex or something fully formed. 20-year-olds don't have part of their brain fully formed.
Yeah,
What
not until I think it's it's always different, but it's usually mid or late 20s.
Yeah. So I'll have the whole brain. I can bring an entire brain. Hopefully.
good.
We don't know until you actually take the image. But
Well, less whatever, lifestyle choices has destroyed over the years.
or increase the killing power of.
All right, so I tweeted it out there. We'll see if I get any responses.
Nice.
It's late. We'll see.
So yeah, I had a customer, somebody I was working with there at the store, who mentioned that they worked at the neurology department, PhD program there. I was like, oh, I know somebody who used to do that, and I threw your name out there, and he's like, what does she go by? And I'm like, Kiki? You mean Dr. Kiki? I'm like, yeah. And so this has actually come up a couple times, but
When was this?
this was like
Recently?
a week ago. But apparently, they knew you from TWIS,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Dr. Kiki show,
Yeah.
but didn't know KDVS This Week in Science.
Aha.
Conversely, I had another customer whose son, at the end of the transaction, was talking all this sciencey stuff, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. He was like, you should check out this show I've heard of, This Week in Science. He's like, oh, I listened to that all through high school. And now he's off at like something. He's off away at university. He was just happened to be back in town visiting. But he was like, yeah, I grew up here in town. I listened to it on KDVS all the time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you know if
you
we
know
ended
what?
up on Boing Boing or not?
I totally forgot the space bubble story. That is such a good story.
Yeah?
Wow. Should I wait and bring it next week, or what should I do?
Or you can tell us now, or you can wait until next week. I don't know.
I
When did
think
it
you
come
should.
out? Did it come out today-ish?
It got emailed to me 2 days ago.
No, you should wait.
Yeah. Space
Alright.
bubble.
Yeah.
Are we on Boing Boing? I can't find us.
There is one episode of that was posted, and then another episode. I've sent like 3 episodes for posting, and one of them has been posted. So
I see this episode 480.
yeah, it was a good episode.
Oh wait,
That's a good
round
one.
26. The front. This is Fada in the chat room. Round the edge 26. Frontal lobe fully forms, and that's the center of the brain for discipline and forestalled gratification. Yes, drug and alcohol use and other similar behaviors can emotionally stunt and keep that from connecting for some time. So mine might not be connected yet.
Yours?
Why would you forestall gratification? That's such a big assumption that you're going to even have it tomorrow. Who would do that? That seems like being overly optimistic.
It's having a foresight for the future. So if you are,
Forestalled gratification?
it's called willpower. It's called willpower. So if
I think it sounds like a buzzkill.
if you're doing a science show in the evening and somebody before the show says, "Hey, why don't you share this bottle of wine with me?" You say, "No, I need to do my science show," and you don't. And then because you have foresight for the show, knowing that if you drink the wine, you're going to be a little tipsy and maybe the show won't go as well. And then after the show, you can promise yourself that you can have some wine.
That doesn't sound like forestalled gratification, because to
It
me,
is. You're giving
the
yourself
show
gratification
itself
letter.
is more gratifying. So
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I need show now. I need show now. I need show now. Give me show now. I want to do show now.
But if the show isn't now, it's later.
I don't know. To me, it sounds more like, yes, I know, darling. The moonlight. Had a couple of glasses of wine. The concert was wonderful. The performers were fantastic. Dinner was fantastic. Oh, but tomorrow it'll be just as good as if we did it now. So I'm going to hit the sack. I think I'm going to get a good night's sleep. Yeah. I think I'm ready for bed. I'm going right out. That's my plan. Yeah, we could just do it tomorrow. There's no reason to get gratification now. It just doesn't make sense.
Willpower. Young Padawan. Haha. Fada says, it's like, you have to study for something. So you decide not to go to a show somewhere. That is forestalled gratification. Yes.
Okay, well.
What?
Don't
No.
on camera. Oh, what are you doing?
Forestalled gratification. I don't think anybody here. Well, people who have a science show to watch in the evenings, they might, put off doing something else so that they know that they'll be able to enjoy that science show in the evening.
Right.
That would be forestalled gratification,
No,
using willpower.
It's getting
and
gratification now instead of doing that other boring thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking, so say it's like earlier in the day, not now. It's earlier in the day. Or the show's over and you have to wait all the way until next week, but somebody invites you to go do something else. And you go, oh, but I can do that, and that might be cool, but I really love the science show, and I really want to see the science show. So I am not going to do that thing my friend invited me to. I am going to do my science show. Forestall gratification. So
what you just told me is, this doesn't make sense. Okay.
Delayed gratification.
This is what you just said, what it sounds like to me.
Blah, 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 blah.
It sounds like, all right, Justin, there's two parties we can go to. Go to party A or we can go to party B. I'm like, all right, let's go to party A. I just had forestalled gratification on party B because I went to party A. They're both parties.
No,
They're both
so if it's something...
How am I forestalling? I'm just having to make a choice.
No, not a choice. It's delaying when you're going to get the good thing. Delaying when you're going to get the good thing.
Why would you delay the good thing?
So if you're dieting, you're waiting to lose weight. You have a goal in mind. Or if, like Fada was saying, you have to study for a test because you have a goal of finishing a course that's 10 weeks long or getting a PhD, which is years long, whatever. You have a goal. Very satisfying long-term thing. But then if in the weight loss situation, there's somebody who brings like beer and popcorn and with lots of butter on it and pizza, and it's like, yeah, let's have this.
That's a long term.
And then you say, I'm not going to eat this right now because I've got my eyes on this weight loss goal. So I'm going to have the salad instead. Because it's not the gratification, instant gratification right now. It's delayed gratification for something that's going to come much later. And yes, if it is a life choice thing,
then it's gratifying.
But still, it is a long-term planning. You have a goal, an end goal. And so you make these life choices because it is a goal that is offset by some distance in time.
I don't know. I think the beer and pizza is a long-term goal of putting on a few pounds. So it's just, I mean, it is whether you know.
I am never going to win this argument with you because to you it's like you don't see it. You're like, it's just a choice. Everything is just a choice.
Just choices. Just more choices.
It is just more choices, but
forestalled gratification is annoying you.
I get.
Possibly.
I think I'm pretty gratified by just lots of stuff. So maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
instant gratification from everything.
From everything. Woohoo!
But the thing, so basically, like, what the research is saying is that when you're younger, you know, up until your early to mid 20s, you don't have the area of the brain fully developed that allows you to focus on long-term goals or on having things that are off in the distance seem gratifying. So, did he go away?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
I just sort of. I guess it depends on how far back you go. Because there were things, like I can remember, gosh, can't wait to drive a car. It's going to be awesome. And that seemed like that took forever before I was old enough to drive a car. Then I was old enough to drive a car. I was like, woohoo, where's my car? Oh, I'm supposed to work and earn money to buy the car? This is going to take even longer. But, you know, there was also, everything was long term. Everything was out in the future. Now, when you're older, yeah, because you can do anything anytime. You're an adult. I could go drive. I could go drink. I won't do them together, but I could choose between them. I could do whatever it is that I couldn't do and I had to wait to do when I was younger. So now it's just about choices. Just choose which one of those gratifying things I'm going to do.
But
when
that's
young,
she's saying this is part of how you make that choice. Like I might say I will take the extra time to get to the party by taking the bus instead of driving so that when I get to the party I can drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But when you were younger, you didn't have a license, so you couldn't drive. So you had no choice. You didn't have the decision to make.
Which is why it's a good thing that we don't give young people licenses. So that's the whole thing, is that they might not be able to make the appropriate choice because they are going to be looking at the right now, instant gratification of having a drink as opposed to the long-term consequences of what could happen and be able to see clearly the way that you can see now with 2020 hindsight, that you can see your choices. You know, they don't see the world in the same way. They can't, that until that area of the brain is fully developed. And some people it develops earlier than others, of course, and some people much, much later. But in some people, as it's developing, you're a little just not quite able to make those choices appropriately because you don't see all the options in your mind's eye.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd be interested just to see if I have one.
What? A mind's eye?
No, the frontal lobe thing connected.
I bet you do. I would think that you do. Why do you think you don't?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think I'm going to go to bed, so I'm going to choose to not enjoy your guys' amazing company right now, so that instead I will feel better in the morning when I have to go to work.
Look at that.
I don't know if you look bored anyway. I don't even know if I believe
And she's
this.
had a fever. She was sick.
If you were finding this conversation more gratifying, you'd hang out.
If I didn't find it gratifying, would I just tie it into itself in my excuse for leaving?
Yeah. Oh.
No. Oh.
Oh.
Good night, everybody. See you next Wednesday. Wednesday, not Thursday, but Wednesday. Don't forget.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday?
That's right. Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Hump day. Science on hump day. Science on hump day. Science on hump day. There we go.
Oh, no.
All right, you guys. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Thanks, you guys, for being part of making this an amazing show. Justin and Blair, wonderful as always, and I look forward to trying this on a Wednesday. Yes. Yeah. All right. I'm going to hang up some point. Oh, look, I'm going to take a picture. Everyone smile. I did. I took a picture. That was funny. All right, how do I turn this camera off? There we go. There's the button. Stop broadcast. Have a great night, everybody. We will see you next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Thanks for watching.